We start with Gaza, where the humanitarian toll continues to rise. Amid new strikes and escalating violence, condemnation is mounting from Palestinian officials, aid organizations, and international community. Meanwhile, in Russia and Ukraine, the war enters another critical phase. The Kremlin's latest strategic moves, deepening military partnerships and sharp rhetoric from global leaders, are fueling already high tensions. Welcome to Qnews' special coverage, where we tackle the latest developments in the Middle East and beyond. The Government Communications Center at the Palestinian Prime Minister's office has released the latest situation report, warning that Israel's war on Gaza has entered a new and deadly phase. Since March 18, 2025, Israeli attacks have killed 1,827 Palestinians and injured 4,828, and 420,000 have been newly displaced, while Gaza's health system has collapsed and humanitarian aid remains blocked. On the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces continue assaults on Jenin and Tulkarm. Over 51 Palestinians have been killed and more than 45,000 displaced. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has said that the vast majority of Gaza's population are civilian children, women, and men suffering indescribable suffering. The agency affirmed via its Twitter account that nothing can justify the collective punishment of the Palestinian people, calling for a ceasefire now. It noted the deteriorating humanitarian situation is worsening as a result of the bombing and the ongoing blockade, which prohibits the entry of humanitarian aid and commercial supplies. The toll of Palestinian detainees who have been killed since the Israeli aggression on the Gaza Strip has surged to 65, including a child, and at least 40 from Gaza. The Palestinian Prisoners Society, or PPS, emphasized in a statement that among those killed, detainees are 74, whose bodies are still being held by the occupation, 63 of whom have been held since the beginning of the aggression. The PPS also noted that the Israeli occupation continues to conceal dozens of dead Palestinians among the detainees from Gaza. The death toll from the Israeli occupation's aggressions on the Gaza Strip since October 7, 2023 has risen to 51,240. Medical sources reported that over 116,931 people have been wounded. They added that 39 people were killed and 62 others wounded in the past 24 hours, with the casualties taken to hospitals across the Gaza Strip. The number of slain civilians remains trapped under the rubble of destroyed homes and facilities or line the streets as the ambulances and rescue teams are unable to search for them due to limited resources. The Israeli occupation continued its aggression on the city and the camp of Jenin for the 91st consecutive day. The occupation forces continue to send military reinforcements accompanied by fuel and water tankers from the Jalema checkpoint to the vicinity of the Jenin camp. Israeli occupation forces also closed the road between the cities of Nablus and Jenin and the entrance to the town of Bazaria, alleging that a shooting attack had been carried out in the area. For further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the editor-in-chief of Al Ahram newspaper, Mohammed Azzuddin. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on Q. Sir, first let's start off by asking, what are the legal and ethical implications of the continued strikes under international humanitarian law?
Thanks for having me in Qnews. Yes, certainly. The matter does not need to pose questions and what's happening. It's a systematic targeting for the defenseless Palestinian civilians under the pretext releasing some hostages or to eliminate the Palestinian resistant branch, meaning Hamas. What's happening is an actual massacre against the defenseless Palestinian, and that should be stopped. The international community should pressure and to announce and to report before the international platforms and forums, and that's what's happening now is in a great war crime. Ambulances shouldn't be targeted. Tents sheltering the displaced people shouldn't be targeted. In addition to official disclosure of the process of starvation, a very delicate and systematic process to kill the Palestinian, in addition to displace them and demolish their homes above their heads. It is very shameful, and we wish for the international community to play its role to halt such aggressions against the Palestinian civilian, in particular in the Gaza Strip.
Well, sir, now the ceasefire agreement itself has been a very elusive thing since the beginning of this onslaught in Gaza. Is it something that is still hard to achieve at the moment?
We should not lose hope. Firstly, a ceasefire should be in halt, stopping the assault against the Palestinians, and to start entry of the humanitarian aid. There's a dire need for the humanitarian need. In addition to tens of thousands of casualties without medications. The matter is over exceeded the matter of being under a ceiling or to gain or require the basic needs. The matter is basically no food for the thousands of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, which is very important to have a ceasefire, delivering the humanitarian aid, and then to start a negotiation under any circumstances. What Israel is talking about, that using the military force or to enter a new phases of Israeli occupations and by military rule or any other designations, and in return of the right for the Palestinian statehood. But matters should be reasonable, even from the side of the Palestinian resistance, to have a ceasefire and to hand over the hostages. The matter that Israel is protesting that Hamas is rejecting the release of the hostages. Hamas also is refusing the aggressions. I'm not talking about Hamas, but I'm talking about the Palestinian resistance. And this is what the Palestinian resistance is demanding. Israel wishes to occupy more territories and displace their people and to impose what is named the military rules on Gaza. It is not a dilemma. Firstly, is to have a ceasefire interim, the humanitarian aid, and talk about any further phases. But I doubt, in light of the far-right extremist coalition in the government currently, that will be facing or will have any progress in the path of the Palestinian cause under any provisions.
Well, sir, you touched on the idea of, parts of the Israeli government discussing occupying the Gaza Strip. How do you read the statements that were given out by the Israeli finance minister regarding the necessity of occupying the Gaza Strip?
Certainly, these and a discriminatory statement that shows the main cause is not to return of the hostages, but the main goal is to dominate more territories of Gaza Strip. And when the Israeli army failed to release the hostages, they showed the real face following the ceasefire agreement, and even before the end of the first phase by the resumption of bombardment against the Palestinian civilians. These statements are odd, but aren't excluded from the far right, but they come in the corners of the current coalition presided by Benjamin Netanyahu. The matter here is the two hard choices for the Palestinian people. This rhetoric is rejected, and the continuation of the brutal aggressions against the defenseless Palestinian people is rejected. Israel disavow any agreement and failing any attempts of the release or Israel is refusing to come out of the Gaza Strip and silence any moderate voice of the Israeli cabinet, and therefore we see this extremist statement that support and the coalitions, along with the Prime Minister, wishes to do.
Well, sir, I mean, you talked about the idea of these far-right or fringe ideas, but it seems like the Israeli society in general has this idea of provocation and of anti-Palestinian sentiment. What are the potential regional consequences of the Israeli settler calls to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque, for instance, and the Dome of the Rock that has recently been made quite widely heard?
Certainly, this is a very unfortunate aggressions, and usually comes in the seasons of feasts, either Islamic or Muslims, and the attempt of establishing the Israeli temple and to prevent the Palestinian prayers and to prevent them, whether by the settlers or the Israeli officials, it is a violation of the sanctity of religions. In addition to the continued prevention on the Christian churches in Bethlehem, this is a matter of apartheid, and the passing such a project is criminalized based on the international laws. The Al-Quds city is a Palestinian city, and we should recognize the sanctity of the holy sites established in the Holy Quds. But there is a continued attempt to judicialize the Al-Aqsa and David Temple and other temples that Israel claims as always, and therefore they will be having the aggressions of the holy mosques as well as the Christian churches allocated in the
Thank you
Al-Quds.
so much, sir. Thank you for your time. From Cairo, that was the editor-in-chief of Al-Ahram newspaper, Mohammed Azadeen. Thank you for joining us here on Q News, sir. We now move on to the latest developments in the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Russian President Putin has ratified the Strategic Partnership Treaty between Russia and Iran. This move solidifies the collaboration between the two nations, fostering ties in various sectors such as military, economic, and energy cooperation. The treaty is expected to enhance bilateral relations and strengthen both countries' positions on the international stage. By formalizing this partnership, Russia and Iran aim to work together more effectively in addressing shared interests and regional challenges. The Kremlin has said that the position of the US President Donald Trump's administration on ruling out NATO membership for Ukraine gave Moscow satisfaction, but declined to comment on Trump's hopes for a deal this week. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov stated that Ukrainian membership in the US-led alliance would pose a threat to the national interests of the Russian Federation, and that this is one of the root causes of the conflict. He also mentioned that President Putin and the Russian side remain open to seeking a peaceful statement. He added that they continue to work with the American side and hope that these efforts will yield results. For further analysis, we're joined from Moscow by former advisor to the Russian President Vladimir Putin, Sergei Markov. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on Q News. So firstly, let's start off, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start off by asking, what are the key implications of Putin ratifying a strategic partnership treaty with Iran? How might this affect Russia's standing in the Middle East?
I think the fact that Russia ratified the strategic cooperation treaty with Iran show that Russia is a stable partner. Russia had some intensive relationship of cooperation with Iran during a few years, including in the period of special military operation, where Western countries started the sanction attack against Russia, but Iran continued its cooperation. Now, in a situation when Israel and United States increase their threat against Iran, Russia don't afraid, and Russia signed such a strategic cooperation treaty with Iran. Russia, as a result, as clear for everybody, is stable partner that don't afraid any threats.
So, sir, but there's also seems to be a bit of a softening. What does the Kremlin satisfaction, when they say that they're satisfied with Trump's stance when it comes to the NATO membership of Ukraine, reveal about Russia's long-term strategic goals in Eastern Europe, and what does this mean for future relations in general?
I think we have too much rumors about such negotiation and too small real facts. And look, for example, on the neutrality of Ukraine. Now, United States told that all they accept the Russian demands that Ukraine should be not a member of NATO, but it's absolutely not enough for Russia, because what's already have been told, even treaty had been signed by United States with Iran, and then they just get this out of this treaty. Russia now demands, first of all, that neutrality of Ukraine should be in constitution of Ukraine. Secondly, that neutrality of Ukraine should be the key point of the big international treaty, which is should support, which should repeat so-called Austria model, when Austrian Republic get neutrality guarantee, but such treaty. So the treaty about neutrality of Ukraine should be signed by United States, Great Britain, France, European Union, Russia, possibly China, but this Western country is most important. So it means that just words absolutely not enough. Also, Russia demands not territory. Russia demands liberation of the people who live in Ukraine from terror of the Ukrainian regime. It means to get out all political repression against Russian language, to get out all political repression against Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and to liberate all political prisoners in Ukraine.
So, Mr. Markov, when President Trump says he's hoping for a deal this week, it doesn't seem very likely that Russia and Ukraine may reach a deal. What obstacles do you think remain for the way of peace, and how realistic is this expectation by Trump that it may happen within a week?
The main obstacle, I think, is the fact that Vladimir Zelensky very much afraid. Zelensky afraid of peace, because if peace happens, military order will be stopped, new election will happen. On those elections, Vladimir Zelensky absolutely clear lose the power, and after this, people of Ukraine will ask Vladimir Zelensky, why you are responsible for the killing of the 500,000 of Ukrainian people? Why you deny Istanbul suggestion of 2022, which Putin suggested you? And Vladimir Zelensky probably will be the target for the hatred attack from Ukrainian people.
So in your opinion, the obstacle is the Ukrainian side, not the Russian side?
Russia has strong demands. And the fact that Western countries don't ready to satisfy these demands, it's also very clear. Look, for example, with ceasefire. Russia fully supports ceasefire, but not unconditional ceasefire, because Russia already had experience of two unsuccessful ceasefire. It was Minsk I agreement and Minsk II agreement. Both of these agreements have been used as powers for the recovering of Ukrainian army from defeat and making Ukrainian army more strong and to start new war, which these powers have been used by Ukrainian regime and Western countries. So Russia very strongly demands ceasefire should be step to the peace, but not to the step to the new, more intensive and more bloody war.
So, given everything that you just said, what, in your opinion, what are the chances that a US-led peace initiative will be successful?
It's difficult to imagine what will be the condition of such peace deal, if also about ceasefire. We have so many rumors, no clear fact. But I want to stress, if it will be not dramatic, absolutely dramatic change of Ukrainian regime from terroristic, repressive, undemocratic regime, which Ukraine has now, to the more open, more democratic regime which will respect human rights, including right of the Russian people in Ukraine for Orthodox Church and for the Russian language. This suggestion will be strongly denied by Russia.
What is the significance then of General Keith Kellogg's comments on the US returning to London for talks, ceasefire talks? How might this change the discussion's course when it comes to the conflict in Ukraine? Do you think there will be any change, or things will be the same?
My personal opinion that Donald Trump really wants to get peace in Ukraine. But at the same time, Donald Trump understands that it's not so easy to make pressure enough to the Ukraine and to European countries to accept Russian reasonable and realistic and, in fact, peaceful Russian demands. That's why now Donald Trump, from my personal point of view, just waiting and looking for any pretext to give up and to stop any military assistance to Ukraine.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. From Moscow, that was former advisor to the Russian President Vladimir Putin, Sergei Markov. Thank you for joining us here on Q News, sir. That brings us to the end of our special coverage for today. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsAG to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.